I mean, it still would have been lovely, but there was just something about like, cause what? Cause what? Cause you thought you ate my pose, but guess what? I'm here too.
What's good, everyone? This is Film Festival Friends podcast, and I am your host, Brandon Nick. What happens when a storyteller creates his first short film at the intersection of community and passion? Let's find out in this insightful conversation with Trey Sherman, where we kiki about how his short documentary film, made some room for him. And the conversation starts now.
I am here with my film festival friend, Trey Sherman, who I will actually let you tell me about your film. So I want to do it in like a bit of a fun way. I love game shows. I like so much of what I watch in my spare time is game shows. One of my favorite game shows is 25 Words or Less, hosted by Meredith Vieira. So in 25 words or less, describe your film, Make Some Room.
Okay.
I'm counting.
Oh, already? Okay. You're counting the words.
Yes, boobs.
Comprehension this morning is already... Okay. So, in 25 words or less, my film, Make Some Room, is about what happens when a house who left due to drama... Let's start over. Make Some Room is a film about the departure, return, and revival of a legendary house in the kiki scene of Ballroom.
Okay, working. You had 5 words to spare. I love that.
Okay, see, I wasn't going to be able to come up with the sentence and count, so I was like, let's just make sure we're coming in under to be safe, honey.
Thank you for that. What is the origin story of your film?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm at a moment in my life where I just got laid off from my job, and I was in a similar position when I decided to make the film. It was a time in my life where I had worked at The Problem with Jon Stewart for nearly 3 years. And once I had this free time, no longer having a job to be at every day, I have been obsessed with Ballroom since I was in college, watching YouTube videos back in the day. And OTA is a mini ball that happens every Monday at $3 Bill. I went to OTA and worked up the courage to walk beginner's performance, made it to the last battle, and the current leader of the house at the time, Marciano, Prince Balenciaga, saw me there and asked me to come to a practice. And having access to the practices and just being around the people and being immersed in Ballroom, because like I said, I didn't have a job. I was at the practices. I was at all the balls. It just felt like something that but it just felt like it became something I wanted to document. So I would say that the conception of it came largely just from an internal source of inspiration that sort of drove it from the start to the finish line.
So, if I'm hearing this correctly, this is the timeline of you physically being a part of Ballroom and making the doc. Those happened around the same time. It's like you got into the house and you was like, oh, well, let me actually document this experience while I'm here. So, like, you made this doc as like one, and I guess in some ways it's like a new community member in Ballroom and a new member of the House of Marciano, correct?
Correct. And yeah, I didn't want to come in and just make the film. I would say maybe it took a couple months for me to feel comfortable filming, right, and to feel as though the people I was filming would be comfortable with me doing so.
What was that conversation like with them?
I think Really, it was a conversation with the leaders, primarily Prince. And the truth of the matter is, Prince really approached me about making some sort of film because he, as we got to know each other, I told him my background in production, things like that. But the more we got to talking, I told him my vision, he told me his, and we just kind of tried to meet in the middle as best we can, or as best we could. I'm curious about what would have happened if I were to make that film now. Or if I had known the people well enough or better to where I felt extremely comfortable just filming at any given time. Because there were moments where I felt kind of like awkward. It's awkward sometimes putting a camera in the face of a person you don't know and just be like,
Yes.
be yourself. And it's like,
Right. No, yes.
girl,
Especially when we are in like, when, we actually have some level of reverence for the space, and when the space is like, has some element of like sacredness or just like, specialty. What does that balance look like for you in terms of like, when do I press record and let this camera eat up what is happening versus when do I just exist in the space? And I'm asking this also as somebody who is like, I know this is a loaded question, but you are a filmmaker, but you are also in some ways a subject because you are also a member of this house.
Yeah, I think the way I try to approach life in general is to have an intention and then make sure that what you're doing feeds or serves the intention or like a sub goal of the intention.
Yeah.
And so I think in my mind, maybe even subconsciously, there's that sort of idea just lingering. And it's like, is this moment helping me tell that story? And I think sometimes it's hard to know. Like the answer is not clear, but knowing that it's like there has to be some sort of guide. Otherwise, it's just like, I feel like this. I feel like this. Oh, in this moment. And that could be so arbitrary. So I just try to have an intention and make sure that my actions match it.
How did you fund the film? Was there funding for the film? What did that look like?
Yeah, I am such a novice. Well, I don't want to say novice. All of this was very new to me, is what I will say.
Yes.
And we may have had a conversation about this prior, but I don't know even. Let's say I had $5,000 for this film, which I did not. I didn't. There was no budget. No budget. They say shoestring, honey. I had shoestrings in my shoes, but there was no budget.
See.
So,
I mean, and that is very real. Sometimes we are making. I mean, I'm often making something with little to nothing. So if the answer, I'll let you finish, but if the answer is like there's no budget, then that is also very real and honest.
Yeah, no, there was no budget, and I was gonna say the only thing I was gonna add is that I don't know what the standard is for, let's say, if I have $5,000, what is that going to? Because it's not going to go to me. Is that going to go to paying for an editor? Is that going to go to potentially paying subjects? Is it going to paying? In this instance, there was one part of the film where I enlisted help filming it, which is at the ball itself, where I was also walking the ball. So I knew that I was going to need help just getting footage of it. So I know I would have liked to have paid those people. I paid for transportation and food, but that was coming out of my own pocket. So
For like Miss Honey, I think that budget might have been maybe $3,500, and because you were talking about like where does 5,000 go in a doc, and I think my 35 went to paying my producer, who was also my DP, who had also borrowed equipment from his friend. So it was like some of that money was in some ways to like pay him for his time and services, but also to pay for the gear, because they had access to like a Sony something, a Sony cinema camera. Um, and then it went to paying the makeup artist because there was it didn't make it in the short, but for the feature there was a Miss Honey the video reenactment. So we had a makeup artist. I hired some friends to be the backup dancers. Some money went to like props. Some of that shit definitely got returned. Um, yeah, went to
Yeah.
crafty. I guess I say that to say like the joy, and I think you'll discover this as you continue to make, and hopefully this doesn't sound like too preachy or whatever. I think there's a joy and the ability to make something with nothing, and then to make something with something. I mean, and there's also a greater joy making something with something, but I think especially for like Black queer creatives who are oftentimes under resourced, our skill and our like creative aptitude to like figure out how do we turn thin air into, an award-winning documentary, right? Is a very special skill. Yeah. So like to that, this is again another pivot. How does it feel to, as a first-time filmmaker, to be in a festival and to have won at that festival? Because like I imagine, that is not something that we have the luxury of experiencing too often. It's just like, straight out the gate, we are already collecting accolades. Essentially, I guess I'm asking, like, talk to me about your Queer Voices experience, because that is also, I guess, contextually, I mean, we knew each other outside of the festival circuit, so we are also friends outside of the film festival. Both of us were screened at Queer Voices. My short, Miss Honey, and my other short, Home, were in Queer Voices 2025 with Make Some Room. So, like, talk to me about your Queer Voices experience.
Yes.
Mr.
Also, shout out
Award-winning
to you.
filmmaker.
Yes. For Miss Honey, I still need to see Home. I was looking forward to seeing it. I wasn't able to go to that screening. But yeah, it was very validating. I mean, it's a cliche to say that, but to make something that you feel so good about, there's always, or for me, there's anxiety about how it will be received. I tend not to put things out that I don't at least feel good about, but I felt really strongly about this. And so, first of all, there's the submitting it. I didn't necessarily know that it was going to be accepted. I didn't, of course, know that it was going to win. I wasn't expecting that, but all I knew is that I felt really proud of what I had created. And so, specifically, I think to have a film festival dedicated to queer people of color, should I say it felt even more fulfilling that my peers fuck with my shit. Like my peers like what I made, you know?
Yeah.
It just made me happy. The red carpet and all that was fun. I mean, it was great meeting other people who are doing similar things. But I think there's an entertainer in me, and it felt like an extension of myself being an entertainer to see the film on the screen and to just hear people applauding and cheering and like oohing and like see them, getting choked up when I got choked up. Like just experiencing it kind of felt like, oh, we have a shared experience here. And this showing of the film is part of that. I did not expect to win, but I also felt really proud of what I had created. And like my experience had prepared me for it.
That's beautiful, especially considering what you shared in the talkback that we had for the block that we were both in, where it's like you actually had to re-edit the whole thing. Can you, for the viewers, can you talk to us about like that experience? Because it's like, yes, it is great that you made this film. You have this experience. This is your first film, but you also had to remake it after already getting submitted. So can you talk to us about like that little snafu?
Yes, let's relive the trauma. Yes, I. It's the worst. Some of the worst moments I think in life are when bad things happen and it's nobody's fault but your own. Like there's no one
Mm,
else to blame. You can't be mad at anybody but yourself. And when you mess up, oh, you so desperately want to fix it. And so,
mm-hmm.
yeah, I was sitting at this desk, putting my hard drive and my laptop in my bags because I had work stuff, I had gym stuff, I had stuff because I was taking my laptop and my hard drives to work so that I could work on it during my lunch break, which was something that I would often do. And uh, everything's on such a tight schedule when you're trying to do so many different things at once, a job, a
Yeah.
podcast, a film, right? And so I'm squeezing every little bit of the day out of the day to where I'm right on time for the train. I'm right on time to take the bike from the train to the bike stop at my job
Mm,
to where I get off the bike with my book bag, but I leave the tote bag with the hard drive in the basket. And I don't even
mm,
realize that I did that until 30 minutes later, after I had gone into my morning meeting and I came back down. And I knew, you know, the crazy thing too? I had done this before. I have ridden a bike to that station and left my bag in the basket. When I went back out, the things were gone, the bike was gone. Uh, I was frantic. And I think deep down, I knew I wasn't getting it back. But I have
mm.
to, in life, whether it's a relationship or a job, or I'm not really good at just cutting stuff off. I have to cross every T, dot every I. I went into every establishment at that corner. I followed the bike to the station where it ended up. I went to that station. I checked every establishment
Wow.
at that corner. I told you I walked into a police precinct and I was like in the police precinct being questioned by the police. I was like, you have strayed so far from your purpose. Like, this is not where you're supposed to be right now.
Friend,
And
no.
I just had to accept that it was gone. Um, and I had to finish that day of work not knowing if it was backed up or not. And
Mm,
thankfully, I know the anxiety of that. And mind you,
baby.
this was the day after I found out that I was accepted to Queer Voices.
Wow.
Because honestly, I submitted a work in progress thanks to your encouragement. Honestly, it wouldn't have happened without you. Uh, and it had been just sitting because I felt stuck. I had gotten to a place where I was stuck. And so it
Mm,
wasn't done, but I knew that the version that I submitted was not what I would have wanted to put out into the world. And so there were parts of it that I knew were going to stay intact. But yeah, it was backed up and I ended up having to re-edit the entire thing. And that's, like I said at the festival, literal sweat and tears. You know, some nights being in this exact seat up until 5, 6, 7 in the morning, just trying to get it done. But
wow.
it was worth it.
This is crazy, but I feel like that might actually be somewhat common. Maybe not the losing of the hard drive via a city bike, but like, losing a project file because of insert reason here and
Yeah.
needing to, re-edit. Like, I think the benefit of that is that you already done the work on one hand. So it's like, I know the clips and the sound bites that I'm looking for, but I wonder in that for you as you re-edited, maybe this is just my experience and I don't know if that is like for you, but when I've had to re-edit, it's like, okay, I do remember so and so said this, and then I cut it, and then I cut to this, and then I did this, and like I can splice. I remember more or less what was there, but some things also change as a result of being able to re-edit a thing. So like I wonder for you, was there anything between the version that you submitted, the work in progress that you submitted, and the short that you had to remake? Or even if it was just like, approaching the second edit differently than the first, just like talking to me about like how the project changed from the version that you submitted and lost to the version that you revived from the ashes.
So the version I submitted, the beginning of it was entirely different. It did not include any of that arc. I mean, at this point, I can't fully remember, but there are things in the final edit. There are things in the final edit that were not in the initial edit. But I
Okay.
would say nothing really got cut. I mean, the beginning is very different. The ending is very different. And then there are some little things in between the
Right.
bulk
Of
of it,
course.
because I had the file that I had submitted that I could just try and replicate. But I found that I know that when I was editing, there were some very nuanced things that I had done to sort of tie things together that
Mm,
I was having a hard time replicating. This music is hitting this beat at this moment, and it just, I realized, I remember sitting here trying to get the exact frame to match the exact frame where I made this cut. And it just, if I had gone through that process, I was like, Trey, there's no reason for you to be so married to this prior version of this thing. Uh, it's just going to have to be different. And,
mm,
even the things that I tried to replicate, I found myself in the second edit being like, well, actually, I think this works a little better here for this reason. Um, and it just became sort of a new process in and of itself. I don't know if I should turn this camera over here. Let's go for it. But there's some sticky notes up there.
yes,
Um,
process. I love
that
this.
that wall was used to be filled with sticky notes because I realized I need a visual representation of
We
what
got to get
I'm
that frame right.
like a yes, a physical representation of what of the order that I'm doing things, not just on a timeline, not just in notes, but like a real physical thing that I could like pull these things down and
Mm-hmm.
reorder them. And it just made sense, like just go chronologically,
Yeah.
because I just kept getting confused about like how to do it, why this is here. And so I just decided like, let's just go in chronological order. And similarly, so that's how we started. We just start with the past. Like, boom, you have this feminine presence walking down the stairs. This is how you're meeting the House of Marciano.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was a good tribute to Ballroom and like the female figures who sort of were the trailblazers of like creating the scene. And uh, similarly, my favorite scene where we have this slow mo of the
Mm,
practice before the ball, that looked different. I was in love with it in the first edit, but even editing it a second time, I was like, I had ideas for how to change it. I was gonna add more voiceovers from the
mm-hmm.
people who you were seeing, but when I put them in there, it somehow took away from the moment, and I don't fully
Mm,
know why. Like there was something I think more powerful about just seeing it without people explaining to you. Like, there was one line from Badu. She said something to the effect of, I feel like the more I unlock in my Vogue, the more free I feel in the world.
mm,
And it's so powerful, but I couldn't find a place
yeah.
for it because it just, and so since I'm the one making the film, I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago when I edited this.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you as a person, where you are in life when you're working on something influences the process and the product. So
Hmm.
I feel like I've been talking for so long, but
No, it was. I mean, what was great about that was. Sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
that's essentially it. I think to wrap it up, everything was different. As much as I wanted to even make, even the parts that I wanted to completely replicate, my intentions behind the nuance of the edits made an entirely different thing that, in my opinion, still turned out great, even if it wasn't the
Yeah.
same, you know?
Yeah. No, that is beautiful. I don't know why that the last thing that you were talking about just gave me the vision of like metamorphosis and caterpillars becoming butterflies. I did want to bring up the slow motion scene because like I remember us sitting in that auditorium or like in the room for queer voices and like that moment was so beautiful. Cause like I think for me personally, um, it is like I also understand. I think for the folks who have some like, understanding of ballroom, it is often associated with like, relatively like hard music, like hard hitting like dance or like house music. Um, but to see folks moving um, and to see Black queer and trans folks move their bodies in ways that are typically just like very hard and very or like not very hard but like very fast and very high energy. To see it like slowed down on top of this like very melodic music puts voguing and ballroom into like a different put it into a different context for me, and I thought that was like very beautiful to see. And I guess I'll also say that the quote that you said about like the more about what body said about like the more I get into my body with like voguing or something to express, I feel like it might have been good to hear, but I think we actually see that in this montage of folks moving in slow motion. And like I particularly love like the slow motion segment in itself is very beautiful, right? But I particularly love the moment when I believe it's Prince, the house father, and the other Butch Queen, they're doing runway, and this thing is like
Oh, yeah.
and that little moment with the hand in the face, I was like, that moment
Yes.
in slow motion is so beautiful. Just like I mean, there's a poetry. I think you made poetry out of like a ballroom experience. You know, the practice, the walking, the performance, the being judged, even like in the panel, like in front of a panel. Granted, this is all like framed in the doc as like a as practice, but like just being able to see that moment in slow mo really did something to the kid in me who like had found himself in ballroom. So like, and granted, all that to say, like, I love the version that you ended up with in the second pass. I imagine that the first version of it was also strong, but like, it was beautiful, and I am glad that like spirit led you to articulate that segment in the ways that you did.
This, this was not in the first version. It was like
Wow.
something I found. And when I saw it, I was like, now wait a minute.
Bitch, I'm screaming because had we not seen that moment, I mean, it still would have been lovely, but there was just something about like, cause what, cause what, cause you thought you ate my pose, but guess what? I'm here too.
Hey, popping in real quick. This isn't an ad, this is a request for community support. If you're enjoying Film Festival Friends and appreciate queer storytelling, then join my Patreon today. These shows are free to watch, but they are not free to make. Your contribution helps me produce shows like this. To sign up, visit the link in my description. Thank you in advance. Now let's get back into the conversation.
Oh, okay. No, this is a cute question. Maybe we'll see. But in what ways did make some room for you?
Ooh. I just have a feeling that Make Some Room made some room for me to grow as a producer and a filmmaker. Um, because, like I said, it was a very validating experience. And I think I was having a conversation with my roommate about this recently, how confidence and talent sort of feed each other. And it takes an opportunity to have or to showcase your talent to build confidence to then get opportunities to showcase your talents
Mm.
and build confidence, and it just kind of builds, you know what I mean,
Yeah, that's
like
so interesting. Yes.
because I think for a good percentage of my life I spent a lot of time doubting myself and my abilities because people in the world made me feel, I allowed people's perceptions or opinions about queerness or blackness to taint my perception of myself. And I think when
Mm.
you live in a world, living in a world where I felt like people were against who I am innately, made it hard for me to feel confident about not only myself but my abilities. And
Yeah.
it took more than just, mom and dad telling me that I'm great or I'm smart or I'm talented. I needed, and it's weird to say because a lot of people talk about like not doing things for validation, but I wrestle with this too because I do feel like you need some form of validation I have needed some form of validation to believe in myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will say that just being embraced by others for something that I feel came from my heart and that I was proud of gave me more assurance that the things that I create don't have to just be great for me. So I think it just made room for me to continue to follow my creativity and put out what I think is good using, my experience, my life, my identity combined with my skills. Um, and yeah, the confidence to keep going.
Mm. I love that. I love that. That was a beautiful answer. As someone who also exists at the intersection of ballroom and filmmaking, um, can you speak to me about your relationship in that?
Yeah, I think being at the intersection of ballroom and filmmaking for me has felt like a tough line to sort of walk because I've been in ballroom for a grand total of 1 year at this point. And yeah, and in some ways, I still feel like an outsider. In the scene, I know that a lot of people still don't know who I am. I haven't truly made a name for myself in the kiki scene or in mainstream. But some people know my face. I've been out there. And so I do recognize that one of the things I really love about ballroom, especially in the context of me now being laid off from this giant corporation that has really only ever catered to diversity in a mm, sort of obligatory way, I feel. I I I guess what I'm saying is like I'm a person of color. I'm a black queer man, and one thing I love about ballroom is this idea of the origin of pageantry excluding or not treating fairly, you know, trans women, black women who were competing. And they made their own, which is a conversation I see a lot of people having in journalism right now as NBC got rid of its verticals that cater to diversity. I mean, across the country, we're seeing companies disband their commitments that they made in 2020 to amplifying or creating equity for diverse cultures and backgrounds and voices and thoughts. Um, and so I look at ballroom as this place where for decades, Black queer people have had their own version of something that has, for the most part, even though it's pretty prolific on social media, has been self-contained. Like, this is our Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna show up to the ball in, dressed fashion forward. I'm gonna have a fab effect for my performance. I'm here to get my cash. I'm here to get my trophy. I'm here to represent my house. Like, it's just, what else? It's really unmatched to me
Yeah.
in terms of something that Black people have created and kept sacred. And so I do recognize, but it's something that so many people are trying to figure out. How do we build our own? How do we build our own? And I kind of feel like, look no further. And
Yeah.
so
Ballroom is a good blueprint.
it really is. And I feel like there's so much beauty in it. And that's part of what I wanted to convey through this film. But I also recognize that there are some downsides to publicizing this thing that has, I think, also made a lot of effort to remain contained, right? Like, are certain
Mm-hmm.
groups that you have to be in on social media or whatever to even know where the balls are happening. The houses are invite only for the most part. Like, anybody can't just pull up to a practice. Anybody is not gonna just like know about a ball. So the exclusivity of it in maintaining the culture, the sacredness, putting that in a film, there were, my initial conception of the film was that this is gonna be for ballroom. Um,
Yeah.
but then once it became this bigger thing, like, oh, it's going to be in a festival, I had to really think about, like, okay, who is the audience? And you talked about, like, I had to explain certain things, and that's part of it informed the decisions about, like, okay, how do I keep this as simple as possible? Let's do it chronologically. How do I make it clear what's happening at this ball? Let me tell people who don't understand, like, this is the first battle. Like, I started doing a lot more explaining. Um,
Yeah.
and truthfully, there's a part of me that feels bad that there was a paywall for the film
Mm.
about a
See.
people who, for many of whom, won't see it because they weren't at the festival. Like, even people in my own house haven't seen it, and I'm trying to figure out a way to make that happen. So yeah, I guess to answer your question about being at the intersection of filmmaking and ballroom, I feel like there is some responsibility to maintain the integrity of what ballroom is,
Mm.
while also, doing my best to showcase the best parts of
Yeah.
it.
No, that is so real and so very true because it makes me think, as like filmmakers, art makers, cultural curators, um, who exist in ballroom, we all have some responsibility um, to treat it with the care and reverence that we know it has. And I'm speaking about like me and you, but I'm also speaking about like the Rashads, the Twiggies, and all the other like the other folks who've made ballroom content, like the Deshaun's, like the legendaries, and all of these things. Like there is a responsibility that we have as people in this culture and of this culture to treat it with care and reverence, while also balancing that level of maintaining who it is for and making sure that those folks feel seen and reflected and not perverted or like proliferated against, while also making sure, and especially in the context of like festival circuits and like TV and all these things, that like it also has some level of mass appeal. And I think that is always a very interesting balance, especially when you are talking about like cultural specificity. And I'm saying this as somebody who like, and in my artistic statements, I'm like, I put ballroom into everything I do, but how do I hold all of that in my two hands? But I actually think what you said was very beautiful, and I think that was a great answer. And I also just want to uplift, and I think this is, as I tend to do, this is me speaking in drafts. So I think there is a question at the end of this thought. But at the top of your answer, you were saying that, you've been in Ballroom for all of a grand total of 1 year, and that in some ways you are still making a name for yourself. You are still, very much making room for yourself. And then as you were saying that, my mind went to, and in some ways you are doing the same thing as a filmmaker. Like, yes, you have your own experience working in production and telling these stories for these institutions and corporations, but as Trey Sherman, you are very much now also making some room of your own, both in ball. You're arriving there with me. I love that. You are making some room and making a name for yourself, both in Ballroom and as a filmmaker. And I think I just wanted to hold space for the beauty of that, and how both of these things are being fed to, birthed from this seed of an idea that was this short film around your house. And so I realized that there wasn't a question in that. I'll say this and then I'll shut up. But like, I think I just wanted to give that to you, because I think there is really something beautiful about, and I'm saying this not even to gas you, but I think just like going from the conversation we had outside of whatever that club was,
LeBain.
From LeBain, from as we're waiting to get into the assembly after party, from seeing assembly at Newfest to like, and just think about that conversation where we talked about the film. You were just like, I've been working on it and I don't really know. Like, I don't necessarily have like an end game, but this is something that I've been working on, to the like, hey, you should submit to this festival, to getting into the festival, to losing the drive and having to remake it, to getting in the festival, to screening it and having one best documentary short. Like, there's something really beautiful, and I guess the stepping stones that have happened for you at this intersection of Ballroom and filmmaking. And I guess if nothing else, I'll end with, I think that is a beautiful journey that I am very excited to see how that continues to grow. Says I'll be quiet because I know that was probably a lot to give to you. So I'll hold space for any thought that you have, and then I'll go on to I'll wrap us out.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you for, see, this is what I love about conversation is like, you connect, like I said all of that and had not made that connection in my own life. Like, wow. So I just want to thank you for that, and thank you for helping me make that connection.
Trey.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, just thank you for having me on and for highlighting that, and the work that I've done, and just giving me a space to just talk freely about the art. And I'm excited too. Like, I feel like, I'm at a new chapter, and it's scary. I told you, I'm bringing a lot of emotion from where I'm at in my life right now to this conversation. So that was almost, it was like an epiphany. I'm sitting here with this notebook I have and I've been trying to every day like write one small page of just like something, and then like a broader message on the next page. So
I love that.
I feel like this is gonna be I don't know, swirling around in my mind. So just thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, for me, this is just like, a practice of, all of this is a practice of community for me. So thank you for, just being a part of it. So I have one final question, and then I'll get us into the activity. It's fill in the blank. Black queer film is...
Beautiful.
Okay, great. I love that. So now I want you to close your eyes, and this is a bit of a sensory question. You said beautiful. Black queer film is beautiful. So what does that word look like, smell like, taste like, feel like, sound like? It doesn't need to be all of those things, but as you're using your muscle of imagination and we're talking about Black queer film being beautiful, what does that look like for you? What scene do you see? What thing do you smell? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What's happening in your mind when you think about Black queer film is beautiful?
I'm seeing a few different visuals. Specifically right now, I'm seeing animation, colorful animation, because Black queer film is not limited to one particular thing. I mean, it includes Black filmmakers who make animation. Moonlight comes to mind just as a very, one of the first frames of reference where it's like, I'm able to see this on a on a big screen with my mother and my sister in a theater, a story about people who are like me. It sounds like laughter to me because Black queer people are a key, and it's always going to be that. Yeah, I see community in it. I think Queer Voices made that association for me that Black queer film is always going to have community. I experienced that in my own creative process, people coming along with me just because they believed in me, they believed in the project. And that's what I got.
No, I love that. That was beautiful.
You love a challenging game. Shit.
I do enjoy the art of making a bitch thing.
I'm here for it though. I love.
That's why I started. And that's why I started with that sensory question.
It's time for a 60-second pitch, a creative sprint designed to exercise your imagination. Here's how it works. We've got 4 spin wheels with lead and supporting actors, movie genres, and plot devices. I'm going to spin the wheels, and whatever fate hands us, that's your movie. You'll get 30 seconds to ideate, then 60 seconds to pitch your film idea out loud. Let's go.
So I'm going to spin the first wheel.
I'm so curious what my brain is going to conjure up.
So you have to make a horror about a grandmother's bra starring Leonardo DiCaprio and supporting lead actor Rick Ross. Pitch starts now. Okay, so I don't have a title yet, but in this film, Leonardo DiCaprio must break a generational curse that is haunting him and his family by retrieving his grandmother's bra from his abusive stepfather, Rick Ross. And in the film, Leo will be haunted by the trauma that Rick Ross enacted on him when he was a child. Leo was never breastfed. And so the bra is specifically triggering for Leo as he faces Rick Ross on his journey to retrieve and we're at time.
And break the curse.
We actually might have been over time, but I'm screaming. No, but it's for that was the key. It's Leonardo DiCaprio being older than Rick Ross in real life, but also having to say. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being my guinea pig. Even if this isn't the first episode, I'm naming that this is the first recording that we did. So thank you for joining me on Film Festival Friends with Brandon Nick. I am deeply excited for all that you have in store. I can't wait for what continues to happen with Make Some Room, and I can't wait to see how you continue to make some room, both in the fields of ballroom and filmmaking.
Thank you for having me, and yeah, congratulations on the podcast. Congratulations on your film. Excited to see what else you are going to bring to the world. So, thank you,
friend.